There are so many ways to handle your money. For example, if you want to be a millionaire or even a billionaire, there are certain things that you have to do. But there are some people out there that simply don't want to reach those milestones. They don't see those as goals. They just want to live a pretty basic life, and that's their goal. And not to say that they want to be poor, but they don't want to be that rich. And that's okay. There are some people who will use a credit card for everything because they can't see themselves not using a credit card. But then there's some people who would never use a credit card simply because of their belief system. And why I start this video off like this is because I'm about to tell you the 5 pieces of money advice that I got that I really wish I didn't listen to. Maybe you see money kind of like I see it, and if you do, you could take this advice and maybe apply it to your own life. If you don't see it like I see it, then it may sound like, well, it sounds like good money advice depending on how you take it. First and foremost, if you can like and subscribe to the channel, that will help out tremendously. All right, so the first piece of money advice that I really wish I didn't listen to is never use a credit card. And of course, I do know there are those people out there that's going to say, well, that could be good advice because they just don't want you to be in credit card debt. And believe me, that could be good advice, but I think is a easy way to get out of a hard thing. So for example, you can explain to an individual how a credit card could be beneficial rather than just telling them not to use it. Because let's be honest with ourselves. Whenever you think of a credit card, you're going to think based off your experience, not based off what the tool can actually be used for. So if you use a credit card and you had a very bad experience with it, of course, the next person that you want to see do well, you're going to explain it to them in a negative light and not what it can be rather than what it was for them. Of course, when somebody is telling you to not use a credit card, they're saying it in a very they just don't want you to go down a path that they went down. But if somebody was to break it down to you in a proper way and show you exactly how to use it to get the most out of it, I think that is a better route. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, because of course I was told to not use a credit card, but I don't think they were saying it in a way like, I don't want you to gain the benefits of a credit card. More so, I don't want you to fall into the traps of a credit card. So of course I know they did it with good intentions, but I still wish I didn't listen to that money advice, because now as I get older, I see all the benefits that I missed out on from not using a credit card for many years. To be honest with you, there's more people in the world that should cut up their credit cards than there are people who should use it for the right reasons. Of course, it depends on who you are and how responsible you are with your financial tools. If you're not a responsible person, what I would say is that's good advice to never use a credit card, because you're just not a responsible individual. But if you understand how to use the tools that you're given, then by all means utilize the tools in front of you. Don't take somebody's advice because they had a very bad experience. Next piece of money advice that I really wish I never listened to kind of falls in the same category as never use a credit card, but put all your money in a shoebox. And that's just a metaphor for basically don't leave your money in a bank. I do understand where these individuals were coming from when they said this. Like I said, I think all the money advice I got was with good intentions. Putting all your money in a shoebox rather than a high yield savings account, you knew I was going to say it, is not really an intelligent thing to do, simply because putting all your money into a shoebox is similar to you not accepting a 401k match from your employer. It's just money that you put into an area where it compound interest from the percentage that's given. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, why wouldn't you? It just doesn't make sense to not take the money that's given. And no, it's not a fortune that they're giving you. So now this next one is kind of going against everything I believe in. And I really wish I didn't listen to the fact of starting a business. And I really wouldn't say listen to, because it was my own stubbornness that made me start a business. Nobody really told me to start a business, but I felt like I add this one simply because starting a business was one of those things you see and hear from other individuals, like on social media. Like, I started a business and now I'm this person. And not to say that's not true, but they don't tell you the in between or what they had before they started the business. For example, if you have parents that already started a business prior to you and they can kind of teach you everything before you start your business, or even your parents having money or being in a financial position to where if your business starts to collapse, they can kind of piggyback it. So these little things matter, because all you hear is that someone started a business and it became extremely successful, extremely quick, but you don't see all the ins and outs and basically everything that the business needed to get to where it's at. And to be honest with you, I fell for that illusion. I seen people say, hey, start a business and this is how you could become successful. And don't get me wrong, starting a business, you can become extremely successful, but you just have to understand the pros and the cons. You have to understand that just because you start a business does not mean it's going to be successful. Actually, the likelihood of it being successful is 1%, because 99% of businesses in the US fail, like that started. Like the statistic is that high. So starting a business is not really like, actually, let's be real. For anybody who started a business, you're probably familiar with failure, and that's okay, because most people who start a business fail. I failed at every business that I've started so far, but I don't see that as discouraging. I think you only fail when you quit, but I think that's a part of starting a business. I think that's a part of the process. I think that, of course, you will go through failures, but it's still advice. At the time of my life, I think the first thing you want to do before starting a business is build a skill, especially if you don't have people who support you outside of the business. Like if it's just you, build something that is valuable that you could offer someone for exchange of money, so you don't ever put yourself in a position to where you rely on the business so much that you start to do shady stuff and you start to get very salesy, you know, like you just become that person you never wanted to be. And starting a business take a lot of capital. It takes a lot of money, and a lot of people say, oh, well, you could start it for as little as $0. And that's just not true. Even if you start a business from like your laptop or whatever, you need the laptop, you need the internet, you need the place to do it. You need a lot of different things. And these are not excuses, because I hear some people be like, don't make excuses and make things happen. Some people truly are in positions to where it makes it very difficult. So starting a business wouldn't be ideal. Finding a very decent job that you can build the skill to get, that's actually realistic. Once you get the job, you then get the money to pay for the Wi-Fi and then pay for the laptop. And pretty much you can kind of see where I'm going from here. So I necessarily wouldn't listen to people who say, oh, you don't need money. You kind of do need money. And that's kind of what I always preach. First, make a decent amount of money to where you can then invest into other things that will then trickle into you eventually gaining passive income. But until you get that first initial piece of money, then don't even worry about anything else. In this day and age, I feel like this one probably is the most important one. Your credit score is not important as long as you make a lot of money. And to be honest with you, I was a firm believer of that even before I was told that, because I felt like as long as you make a lot of money, why do you need a good credit score? A good credit score doesn't matter if you make a lot of money. For example, say you're a multi-millionaire and you have a bad credit score. That shouldn't affect you, because you could just pay for stuff straight up. And even though you're very wealthy, you having a bad credit score can definitely still affect your money, like you making more than what you're already making. We all think of credit scores like, oh, it's just a way to borrow money. That's all it is. And to be honest, it kind of is, but we don't see it as a way to leverage money. We don't see it as, okay, I go in here and then I borrow this money and then I make this amount of money from the borrowed money. So I never really spent my own money. If you see it like that, the sky is the limit. But basically the moral behind this one, make sure you have a good credit score, take it serious, understand it inside and out. So I had to learn this the hard way, because the environment that I'm from, my background, it was always buy the cheapest of all options. Like if there's 3 of them and there's the cheapest, buy that one, because, don't buy the most expensive. And don't get me wrong, of course, there are situations where the cheapest is just fine. Of course, you have to, weed out what those items are. But for example, if you are trying to be a YouTuber, let's use YouTube, for example, but you buy the cheapest camera intentionally when you can afford something a little bit better, it's like, are you so surprised that your quality is not as good as this person or that person? And it's like, is that camera going to last long, or will you have to maintenance it next year? Like little stuff like that. And if a camera is a bad example, the best thing to think of is stuff like a car and other items such as that, like, because you'll buy something and then it won't last long, or generic like chargers and stuff like that. You'll use it that second time and it'll like act like it's charging your phone, but it's not really charging your phone. Don't you hate that when you wake up and your battery dead, but you charged your phone? That kind of stuff. And I know those are little petty little items and stuff like that. But it does go far because you think you're saving a buck, but you're not really, because now what you have to do is go buy a brand new one. And it's like, well, I'm not going to make the same mistake. And some people see name brand as, oh, they're just upcharging for the name. And don't get me wrong, they are. But they also have to stand to a certain standard. Like, say you buy an Apple charger and it doesn't work. You take it back to Apple and, you know, they'll work it out. They'll figure it out because they have a reputation that they got to uphold. And this is why sometimes buying the higher end of certain brands, it does make sense. It does actually, it is okay. Like, it's like, that's not the worst investment. But I took advice from people that's like, hey, just buy the cheapest. And if it's knockoff brand, it's fine, because, you know, it do the exact same thing. In some situations it do, but a lot of experiences I had, I would buy stuff that's like knockoff or not name brand, or, you know, the cheapest option, and it will break on me within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right outside of the warranty. So now not only did I just buy something that isn't useful, I got to go buy the proper one. But nowadays I just kind of skip all the fluff and I just buy what I need to buy. And that's 5 money lessons that I wish I didn't listen to. If you have any money lessons that you were given and you think it was bad advice, comment below if you don't mind sharing. But with that being said, I'll see y'all on the next one.